and consideration of proposal for interior flood reduction feasibility study for the city. A combination of engineering services from Bar Engineering and Otomo Engineering. FEMA is formally certifying the city's levee system. However, flood inundation maps being released will indicate potential for flooding due to interior drainage and low-lying areas on the landward side of the levees. This study will help flood define potential mitigation options by conducting survey work and defining options. Total cost to determine elevations and develop methods of mitigation totals $33,459, with a more in-depth study having a considerably higher cost. Mark Counts, Bar Engineering, and Josh DeFrank. There we go. Otomo Engineering will be present to further explain the proposed scope of work. See also attached staff report from last council meeting. Welcome. Where do we start?
Council had questions based upon our last meeting about exactly why this is needed, what the report is going to get us. Maybe you could talk a little bit about methodology, how that's, what effect that'll have on future study, and how does this get us to the mitigation effort so that FEMA can see what our plan is and hopefully keep as many structures as possible. I think the goal should be no structure has to purchase flood insurance. We may not get there, but I think that should be our goal. So Art, how does this project gonna work for the city?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I think this is kind of a general follow-up to the levee certification effort. So there's a map going around right now that, as you recall, the levee certification allowed FEMA to recognize that the levee provides flood protection. So on the map you see there, the yellow area would represent what the floodplain was if the levee were not certified. So that process, that was a fairly extensive effort, a lot of work around the city, but in the end it was successful, and FEMA is recognizing that levee. All the information that was submitted has been approved, so the new maps that are going to be published will reflect that. And as those maps are coming out, they will also reflect what we call these interior flooding areas. So in other words, the interior area is on the protected side of the levee, and that's when you have a flood, you shut off all the gates so the waters don't come in, but you can get rainfall on the inside of that, and that rainfall kind of goes to designated areas. There's pumps that pump it out, but it doesn't draw it all the way down to the ground surface. So there are some pools that form as a result of that kind of interior drainage flooding. So this flooding isn't new. You've always had interior flooding issues. It's just that the old maps did not reflect it. The old FEMA maps from the past just kind of showed that area as being removed from the floodplain. However, FEMA's new policy, when they publish new maps, is to show those interior flooding areas. So the new maps that are going to come out will show flooding areas kind of similar to the hatched areas, or the kind of gray on top of the yellow, kind of in the corner of some of the level system. So that's what those maps will show. One thing that we'd like to do is part of this effort here before you is to do a survey of homes that are near this floodplain. That not every single one of the homes we're going to survey is within that floodplain, or we just want to identify, is it close? What is the elevation? I think it'll help if we go forward then with coming up with measures to reduce these flood levels. It'll help us give us a target then to how much lower do we want to lower these flood elevations in the interior, and then it'll also identify even structures that do not end up being affected by this flooding could benefit from that, because oftentimes a mortgage, as they you apply for a mortgage, they will look at this, and sometimes it depends on the mortgage lender. Not if you've even got the floodplain on your property, they will sometimes require information to demonstrate that you're high enough. So we don't expect that every home we survey is going to be in the floodplain. we don't know that until we do that survey.
And the end benefit of the survey will be bigger pumps?
Well, what that'll do is tell us how many homes might be affected and to what level. So once we get that information, then we can, look at it and say, okay, if we put in this big of a pump, how many homes are still affected, if any, or how big of a pump do we need to put in affect no homes? I think that's what, until we know those elevations of those homes, we don't know what elevation we're shooting for, to draw the water down. I mean, you can't really draw it down to zero because you need some ponding there. So it's a matter of sizing the pumps based on that survey. And there are other measures, like on the north area, we're looking at doing a diversion, which we think will solve the problem without pumps, but until we kind of get some survey of a couple houses up there, we don't know for sure. So, yeah, that's the effort, that it'll do. And then as part of that, the report that we have proposed would look at specifics of, okay, if you put in this size pump, what happens? If you put in 2 pumps, what happens? If you put in a dedicated pump station, what does that do and what's the cost? Or if you do diversions or, things like that. So it'll kind of look at the feasibility of some of those things. And then the one thought is that will identify some alternatives for you. And then it's possible that, or maybe even likely that you could use that report to apply for flood damage reduction funds from the state to help pay for some of the costs or whatever measures you decide to implement. So, that report then would say, okay, we want to do option 2 here, which is this size pump, and it's gonna cost this. You could apply for a grant with the DNR to have them help cost share some of that.
So without doing anything at all, you say there's 80 homes right now that would need mortgage insurance?
No, we're gonna survey 80 homes. At this point, we don't know how many of those would be.
But if we don't do this project,
There could be that many. Again, it boils down to very similar homes could go to one lender and they're gonna say, we need some information to show that this home is high enough. The next one, they may say, well, it's only on a corner of their lot. We don't care. So what I've seen is it depends on who you go to with your mortgage. It's not real clear. So I think this information would help those homeowners then if they do get questioned by the homeowner, even if they're not in.
Is this something that FEMA is recommending?
The survey,
Yeah.
I don't know that they care, because they're either gonna get you with flood insurance or you demonstrate to them that you're out, so, yeah. But I think it'll identify, it's our suspicion in looking at the contour maps, which are kinda rough. They're 1 to 2 foot contours, so you can't always tell, and there's window wells and things like that can affect when a home gets flooded, so. Until you do that survey, you don't know, but I think the thought is it's probably a fraction of those right now that are, where the house is shown right on or near that floodplain.
So, Josh, have you started surveying any of these
No,
80s?
no.
When would that start? If you,
It'd be as
When
soon as
the rain
possible,
stops.
so when the rain stops, yeah.
once the project's authorized.
Right, once
I
you
think,
get authorized
one of the
project.
problems is this community not only suffered from the flood, but then, alphabet soup descended on us. And we just went through this huge project, building new levees and digging out these drain, what do we call them?
Drainage collectors.
Collectors, yes, we couldn't use some other term.
Good news well.
Right. And now we're on the interior side, FEMA's saying one thing, we're taking care of the core and the other thing. We've got this book of projects that Jeff and Public Works guys are working on, that's only going to, once you finish, they're gonna say, okay, start over again. It just, after a while, it's like enough, really, what is, we're asking for 35,000, 33,000, what is the benefit?
I think the benefit in the survey is you give the homeowners information that even if they're not in the floodplain, they can use that to demonstrate they don't need flood insurance. Otherwise, if one homeowner were affected, I don't know what it would cost to come out and do an individual.
They're about $1,500 per home, and I think what we came up with for just, if you were